Hey everybody, this is Travis Marshall again with another Trigger Tuesday brought to you by ThinkKnowLive.Media, where today, again, whether you're watching live or in the replay or some other day of the week, we are bringing a Trigger Tuesday because we want you to think clearly about the topics that trigger our culture today. And we have a very, very interesting one today. I'll tell you a little bit more about why in just a moment, but here's the question. Where do you get your sense of morality? Like, how do we determine what's right and what's wrong? Well, hey, before we jump into it, I want to remind everybody, I really would love if you would partner with us, join with us. Many of you have, and just being a part of our Think No Live squad. You can do that by just subscribing to our YouTube channel, Facebook page, or IGTV channel as well. We would love for that. And then again, just share this out. If you see value, if you see this be a good conversation starter for you and a friend or family or coworker, let them know. And man, we love when you comment and interact with us in the comment section below. But let's jump back into it. Okay, so I said it was a very interesting topic, and here's why. This is actually a crowdsourced topic. This is our first one of season 3, which we're very excited about. Now, since this was sent in the DM, I'm going to give this person some anonymity, and I'll just use their initials. But this was actually not a question. It was a great deal of pushback on a previous video. I'm not sure which one, they didn't specify. But this is what I'm going to call them AM. This is what AM said. AM said, you have your head so far up your beep that you have no idea what's wrong or right. You are a horrible influence and you should be banned from Facebook. Now listen, I can be upset about the kind of implied threats or, the insults. Let's not get triggered. That's a waste of our time. And I don't want you to either. I don't need anybody's defense here. Because what AM has done for us is open up a brilliant and beautiful topic, the issue of morality. You see, what they did was they said you have no idea of what is wrong and right. There's a couple of things that are implied there. One, AM is more aware of what's right and wrong than I am, okay, which is fair. I'm fine with being challenged in that. I'm curious. I'd like a little bit more, but another day. But at the same time, there is the question of what's wrong and right. If I'm wrong, or if I'm wrong about what's wrong and right, well, then I'm wrong. That means there's an issue of that's going on here that needs to be discussed. So when we talk about what's right, wrong, what's righteous, what's evil, what's holy, what's unholy, what's moral and what's immoral, it's a part of some of the 4 basic questions that all of mankind of all time and all races and all places have asked themselves, either consciously or unconsciously. We are contemplating 4 areas: our origin, our meaning, our morality, and our destiny. So today the question is about morality. Where do you get your sense of morality? Where do you get your sense of what's right and wrong? So there's only 3 possible options ultimately. And I think out of those 3, there's only one that makes a whole lot more sense than the other 2. And so I want you to think clearly about these. I'm not going to try to give answers. My goal is to get you to think clearly by asking questions. And I want you to do this. Everything starts with a thought. And ideas have consequences. And I want you to follow your ideas. I want you to follow the idea of what you think to its logical conclusion and see how it works out, and be willing to wrestle in the tension. That's what we mean here by thinking clearly. So again, there's 3 possible options that I can see, and I'm happy to hear any others, but these are the ones I want to offer. We're talking about who decides what's right and what's wrong, what's immoral and what's moral. And the first one is you. That's a possibility. That's an option. Option number 1 is that you get to decide. You, me, get to decide. This is something that you find quite often in an atheistic framework of worldview, of a humanistic framework, maybe even a secular. What I have now is some follow-up questions for you. If you believe that you and me and so gets to decide for themselves, like live out your own truth, right? If we get to decide for ourselves what's wrong, what's right, what's moral, what's immoral, I have a couple of follow-up questions. 1, what happens when what you think is right or wrong collides and differs from what somebody else thinks is right or wrong? Do you allow them, and let me ask some follow-up questions, do you allow others their autonomy to believe what's right and wrong, even though it may be different than yours? Or do you only agree with people that you agree with? Do you only allow people to speak up when you agree with them? Do you see the problem? You see the tension that's beginning to happen here? And then I would have to ask this question. This to me is a more fundamental question. What does that say ultimately about what undergirds your moral values? If you have nothing to stand them upon, nothing to stand them up on, then there's no foundation. It's nothing more than preference. So ultimately, right and wrong is meaningless. Surely you see that. Right and wrong and moral values become valueless when they become nothing more than preference. Because how many times have you changed your mind about the way you believe something, right? And if you've ever been found wrong for something, what do you do? So anyways, so the first one is you. The second one, and I'm trying to move quickly, so pause where you need to. But the second option for who decides what's right and wrong and what's moral and immoral is others. It could be a people group, an organization, could be a state or national, federal, whatever it may be. Could be a king, queen, those sort of things that get to decide, a governing group. And this is more in the lines of, again, secularism, Marxism. There's a few other isms that are kind of like this, but they all basically speak to the fact that the ruling class gets to decide. But what if they decide to change their minds about what's wrong and right? Do you just automatically fall in line? What if it was something you were really passionate about, but now the governing body that you once trusted and agreed with now says differently? Do you just automatically change? Probably not, I would imagine, right? What if they decided that that your opinion about the matter no longer mattered? Like that your thoughts on the matter, like you had no more voice, that you couldn't speak up? What if they decided that? Challenge. There's a challenge. Again, you see this tension. And then there's, again, an underlying, even deeper level. It's almost like Inception. We're going 3 levels deep here in so many ways. You have to ask the question again, where do they get their sense and their basis for morality? Where do they get their idea of what's wrong, right, and immoral or moral? Are they just making up the rules as they go along? Is that a system that you could trust or think that you should? So again, option 1, you get to decide what's wrong and right. Option 2, others or a governing group, a ruling class gets to decide. And thirdly, here's the last option. It's some divine entity that stands outside of time, matter, space, and energy, and those sort of things, and decides and speaks it into existence or exists right and wrong in and of itself. Wow. I struggled there a little bit, no lie. But this is going to be inside a pantheistic or theistic framework, okay? And I think pantheistic is a little bit of a stretch, and that's why I'm kind of having a little bit of a struggle with trying to lump those two in together. But here's what it comes down to. If it's a divine entity that decides what's right and wrong, well, which one? Which one? How do we decide which God or entity or entities can be trusted? How can we trust that they have our best in mind when they decide, if you will, if you'll allow me to just kind of use some anthropomorphic language, when they decide what's right and wrong? How do we know we need to fall in line? And then again, how have the different religious worldviews demonstrated their viability and trustworthiness? Again, I would love to step in and just answer this, but I want you to think clearly. And so for this last one, if you're a Christian, what has Jesus done? What has the Bible done to demonstrate its viability and its trustworthiness in the area of morality and its cohesion and its corresponding to reality? What has Allah done or Muhammad? What has Buddha done, which it's not really fair, that's more along of an atheistic framework? What have these other religious leaders and religious worldviews and their holy text said about these different subject matters? So again, I'm going to stop right there. I wanted to ask questions because I want you to think clearly. I want to hear your comments below. Please let us know. We would love to interact with you and further flesh this out. Hey, again, I'm Travis Marshall with ThinkKnowLive.Media. Share this with somebody who would love to join in the conversation. We would love that. We'll see you next time.